All right, so the story today is Pat McAfee, who's had Aaron Rodgers as a consistent guest, gotten a lot of heat with that Jimmy Kimmel thing. They've been talking about ESPN. I believe they've been airing his show on ESPN. And he recently announced that Aaron won't be a guest anymore. Let's watch it and ask ourselves, did Pat want to part ways with Aaron Rodgers right now? Or was there pressure?
What we do know is the guy that stopped by yesterday caused quite a conversation.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
Now,
per usual.
Not like that.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers Tuesday, season 4 is done.
Yeah.
Complete season.
There's going to be a lot of people that are happy with that, myself included, to be honest. With the way it ended, it got real loud. And real loud. I'm happy that is not going to be my mentions going forward, which is great news. We're a conversation show. People are having conversations. We live in a country that has freedom of speech, but also you're going to have to deal with the consequences of your freedom of speech. So what I'm saying is we've given a lot of people who've been waiting for us to fail a lot of ammo and things to attack us for over the last week. And we would love to get back to the point where we just move on and continue to silence all the haters over here who can't negotiate as good as I can, all the people over here who can't create a show as good as us, and all the people up here who are just going to always be here, and they're going to hustle and do their thing, which I respect. But we need to do that, and that is our focus. That is our goal. And Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. He's a 4-time MVP. He's a massive piece of the NFL story. Whenever you go back and tell it, he will be a huge part of it. We are very lucky to get a chance to chat with him and learn from him. Some of his thoughts and opinions, though, do piss off a lot of people. And I'm pumped that is no longer going to be every single Wednesday of my life, which it has been for the last few weeks. On Friday, obviously, I threw us into the fire as well. Forever stand by that. Everything else, though, just can't do that and not what we want to be known for. And I'm also pumped that I don't have to do these types of talks anymore. So with that being said, sports are alive right now.
So here's one thing I'll say. ESPN wants the Pat McAfee show because Pat McAfee is different. He's doing a more loose approach to sports. He's not so corporate and uptight. He's more free. I don't watch the show. I don't care about him personally. I've always liked him because he came from West Virginia University, which I went to. So there's always a lot of love for Pat McAfee, but I don't know. Something about the way he acted and talked, he just reminds me of somebody who makes fart noises and thinks they're funny. I just can't get into it. But I will say that ESPN, they want Pat because he's different, and they want that audience that they're losing. They want that younger audience. They want the cooler audience, the podcast audience, because they're failing at that. Because even though half the country disagrees with left-wing politics and some of their COVID policies, nearly 100% of ESPN programming is dedicated for the 50% or less. So the real crime here is, God forbid Aaron Rodgers comes along and he's just one person that says what probably half the league is thinking and probably over half the country thinking.
Everybody who dealt with the draconian measures, and that's my last point, and then I just want to fucking move on. But it's like, people are always like, why are you still talking about COVID? Like, why don't you just move on? It's ridiculous. I'm like, well, let's see what happened. They locked everybody up forever. It was supposed to be a couple weeks, right? They locked everybody up. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed and never opened again. Many of dozens of people that I know in their 30s, who poured everything into these small businesses and restaurants.
All of a sudden, it's so controversial, it's so horrible. And I watched that clip back of him and Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy Kimmel said, he's suggesting that I'm on the Epstein list. He's suggesting I did this and that. If you watch the clip, he didn't say that. He just said that you wouldn't like the list coming out, which is open-ended. It doesn't mean necessarily you're on it. Considering some of the stuff that Jimmy Kimmel said, of course, it's insane that he got upset at that little joke or that little jab, because Jimmy, no pun intended, has taken lots of jabs at a lot of people, and even once suggested that unvaccinated people shouldn't get hospital beds or something along that sort. But to Pat McAfee, he looks like a guy who makes fart noises and fart jokes and just brainless, like, I don't know. He reminds me of like a dog just like drooling. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or rude, but it's like, it just seems like brainless, mindless, like drool, college content or whatever. Maybe not. Maybe he's really insightful and cool. But anytime I saw clips of Aaron Rodgers saying something profound, he'd be like, what? Like, he'd just have like this like dumbfounded look on his face, like a dog if you threw it meat, and we're like, go, like that's just the look he had to me. I'm not trying to be rude. That's just the truth. I don't know what to say. It's like, what? What'd you say? And I'm sure he liked the attention that Aaron was bringing to the show. I'm sure it did a lot of numbers and views, and it seemed like he was trying to please both sides of the argument. Like, let Aaron Rodgers speak. He probably doesn't agree with him, or maybe he does, or maybe he has no opinion. Like a lot of people in America, they're afraid to even think about this stuff. So it's like, here's this guy who says these profound things, and the left gets mad and the right likes it, and it brings a lot of attention, and I'm going to sit here and just play middle of the road like, I don't know what's going on. Wow, that's crazy. Can't believe you said that. Whoa, look at my views going up. That seemed like the dynamic of it to me. So on one hand, Pat McAfee doesn't owe Aaron Rodgers anything. He could kick him off the show. Maybe he didn't kick him off the show. Maybe he just left under his own will, or maybe ESPN was breathing down Pat McAfee's neck, or perhaps, I have no idea, maybe Pat McAfee just doesn't care. He doesn't want to make a statement that matters as America is falling and it's becoming a shell of what it once was. Maybe Pat McAfee wants to make mind-numbing content where they never talk about anything important. But here's what I will say. ESPN has become ridiculous, outlandish, and a parody of what they once were. They don't just talk about sports. I wish they did. Seriously. I wish they only talked about sports. But ESPN, when I watch it, it looks like MSNBC now. Sports Center, everything's so fake, everything's so liberalized, and it's so corny and it's so forced, and everything they're doing is so political, even though they pretend like it's not. They've gone into the realm of politics. Most of their anchors go into the realm of politics. And there's one show with one guy that says the opposing view that probably over half the country believes. And ESPN wants to suck the energy out of Pat McAfee and suck the audience out of Pat McAfee and use Pat McAfee as Pat McAfee probably uses them. It's a mutual thing. ESPN probably needs Pat and his show more than Pat needs them. He doesn't need them. But it's like they want you for who you are because you're getting the audience, but they don't want you to be yourself. So if Pat made the decision because he's not political, he doesn't care, and Aaron was going to have an expiration date anyway, as far as it gets, then all for it. I'm not his business decider. I didn't start the show. Pat McAfee deserves to do whatever he wants. It's his show. It's his business. It's his network or whatever he's created, his podcast. He can have or not have anyone he wants on. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers or anybody. Maybe that was just a fleeting moment anyway, but that's all I'll really say. Not that Pat needs to listen to me or he'll even hear this. I don't really care. It's just like they want you because you're different, and then once they get you, they try to control you and make you not different. And you're not a bad person, Pat, for having Aaron on to talk about politics and what happened during COVID, because it's been talked about on ESPN hundreds and thousands of times, and the stuff that the NFL players had to deal with was very aggressive, and same with the whole country. Aaron was a wealthy, rich, and successful quarterback where he could get away with a lot of the protocols because they need Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the most important people in the NFL. But for some smaller players that didn't have so much, I would say leverage in the situation, and a lot of workers in America that had no leverage, these are the people that have been voiceless. He's a voice for the voiceless, and ESPN's done the alternate narrative 10 million times. So they'll try to frame it as like, oh, wow, Pat McAfee was getting political on his show, and we don't need politics in sports. Turn on ESPN and tell me if there's no politics in sports. I wish there weren't. When I watch SportsCenter, I'm not trying to watch Fox News or MSNBC. I'm trying to see sports highlights and see the greatest athletes accomplishing stuff, and I just like sports. And they've gotten so political where it's just annoying and cringy, but if you're going to get political the other way, I wish you didn't. Don't act like it's so crazy that Aaron Rodgers said the other stuff. No, they just want to suck in the audience of Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers, use them, get all these people that they're losing, and then tell you not to do what you're doing. So for that reason, I hope Pat McAfee stands up for himself, because Pat, you don't need them. They need you. And here's the thing. If you want to get rid of Aaron, get rid of Aaron. If you don't. If it was only a fleeting moment anyway, maybe he was just a guest for a couple weeks or months, that's cool. But don't let ESPN vulture off your audience, tell you what to do, and then turn you into another controllable puppet that says nothing, because America is in many ways, I'm not saying completely collapsing, but the country is a shell of what it was 5-10 years ago, and I think everybody knows it if you travel around. If you go to places, the cities aren't the same. San Francisco is a shell of what it was 15 years ago. It's okay to have Aaron Rodgers say something of substance that actually matters on a show where it's all about sports. It's okay to be the one guy that has the one guest saying the opposing view to what 50,000 people at the corporate networks are saying. Don't let them bully you and make you think that that's not okay, because if there's one thing that ESPN is, it's political. They want politics. They want COVID narrative. They just want their narrative, and they don't want to be questioned. So I don't know. Maybe Pat never cared. Maybe he's a great guy. I'm not really sure, but just seeing that kind of like, oh, Aaron is gone, thank goodness. It's like, yeah, now we can go back to making fart noises and low IQ, babble about nothing, okay. And then on ESPN, they're going to make political, racial, and social discussions 1,000 times, but Pat is not going to. It's like, whatever. Let me know what you guys think. That's just my quick take. God bless Pat McAfee. God bless Aaron Rodgers. Me personally, I think that Aaron Rodgers is interesting. I think the reason he was such a threat is because, one, he's really popular. Two, he's kind of untouchable when it comes to his NFL contract. Somebody's going to pay him the money. He's not like a lower tier quarterback or anything. He's one of the highest tier quarterbacks there is, if not the highest. And then three, it's like he actually is very educated. I'm not saying everything he's ever said is completely right, but when he talks about the COVID narrative, he's not stupid. He references studies. He's very smart. He's like out of anybody I've seen talk about COVID off the cuff, which I like anyway, Aaron is very calculated and strategic and intelligent when he speaks, which is why they hate him so much. It has nothing to do with him getting political or talking about COVID. He's just not saying the right thing. So with Pat, they want your audience, bro, but they don't want you to be yourself. Be yourself, whether you disagree with me or not. God bless you. Enjoy your day. And that's just my perspective. Not that it matters. Pat's done amazing for himself, and I'm sure he'll continue to have success.